Married women of Reddit, what was it that your husband did that made you realize he's the one? Many small things. He fixed my friend's car because she did not have money. He was kind to people. He used to call and say, "Can I come be where you are?" He brought me a chocolate bar when an ex sent me a horrible letter. He made me laugh. There was one day when I knew that if I married him, I'd never wish I had looked around longer or dated more. We've been married 24 years. He is still the kindest man I know. These threads are always a huge burst of happiness in my day, followed by crippling loneliness. Not my story. My mom's. She had a breast cancer scare back in the 70s or 80s, and her boyfriend, my dad, said, "So chop him off. I'll still be here." Most likely an ass man. The weird choice. The first time he met my family, we were at a lake house. I went to take my dog out in the yard and I unknowingly walked into a massive ground bee nest with my pup. They got in my dress bathing suit and were all in my dog's fur. I ran screaming into the house with my dog. Both of us covered in bees and brought dozens of bees into the house with me. He ripped all of the bees out of my dog's fur. Helped my mom kill all of the bees I brought into the house with me while I was literally running around screaming and ripping my clothes off. And then retrieved my purse that I dropped near the nest, which had so many bees on it you could barely see the actual material of my bag. That was one of the most terrifying moments of my life so far, because bees in my bathing suit. But I remember being so shocked that someone I had not been dating that long was caring enough to battle a ton of bees for me. Nothing at all. I remember sitting with him in the car. He was driving and it was quiet. I looked over and had a feeling of peace. Calm. A feeling of home. And that was when I knew we were going to be together forever. Another moment that solidified my feelings. We were engaged and had a fight. A huge fight. And I stormed out. Got in my car. And drove off. As I was driving, I thought of friends I could go to tell what had happened and how I was feeling. As I went through my list, I came to the realization that the person I wanted to talk to the most was my best friend. And he was the person I had just left. We have been married now for 25 years. Our looks have faded. We get on each other's nerves. But he is still my best friend and I can't imagine a world without him right by my side. He went on a 3-day road trip with a friend and I was in abject misery the entire time. I distinctly remember wandering into my kitchen, opening the fridge for the 1000th time that day, and just staring into it thinking, WTF is wrong with me? Oh my god, I love him. He got back from his trip at around 1:00 AM, called me, and immediately got right back in his car and drove to my house. I confessed my realization. He said, "It's about time." And we've been together ever since. That was August 1999 and we married in October 2001. My car broke down in downtown Houston while I was working. He came and switched cars with me. Took it straight to a mechanic. Had it fixed, it through a serpentine belt. Paid for it. And was waiting at my house when I got off work a couple hours later. The only thing he said was I went ahead and had the oil changed. About 2 months into dating, we'd gotten to the point where we would just visit each other's apartments randomly. He comes over to visit. But unfortunately, I was stuck on the toilet with a UT. Honestly, I felt like I had to pee all day and just could not leave the bathroom. I embarrassingly explained this to him through the bathroom door and he says, "No problem. Hold on a minute." He slowly opens the door with his eyes closed, a stool in one hand and his laptop in another. He sets his laptop on the sink opposite me and the stool into my shower, which was divided from the toilet by a closet, so we could both see the laptop, but not each other. Close bracket. Then he sat down and we watched Happy Feet together while I was on the toilet the whole time. I nearly cried. He was kind to a homeless man. Knew his name. And the man knew his. We will be married 20 years next week. Friday night on our way home from dinner. Waiting at a red light. A homeless man who has been frequenting the intersection did a little dance and flashed us the peace sign. My husband rolled down his window and handed his to-go box out to him. There was an untouched, beautiful hamburger in that to-go box, which he was looking very forward to eating later on. And I thought, 20 years later, perfect. He is still perfect. Comma did a little dance and flashed us. Dot. Comma the peace sign. Dot. Phew. He told me he loved me. And I could feel in my heart. The way he looked me so often. How he touched me with love. The way he smiled at me when I looked at him. 40 years. Don't spare the details. I'm taking notes. Nice try, Ted Cruz. My wife was my proctologist first. I remember going in for my first appointment and was just immediately embarrassed. I thought she was beautiful and she was about to look at my misbehaving an L area. I immediately got anxious and told her I had to rebook the appointment and was red as a beet. She smiled and said no problem and I left. The itchiness and pain was too much, so I went to a pharmacy and got some creams and then went home. I couldn't stop thinking about her. I rebooked the appointment and went and paid the fee, but told her I just wanted to ask her out for dinner. She said yes and I got a new proctologist. 16 years married now. The balls on this guy. He put his hand on my back when we were walking down the street. Something about the way he touched me was unlike the touch of any other boyfriend before him. I can't really explain it. And he put his hand on my back. I felt like he was promising to always take care of me and protect me, even though I knew all he was doing was walking down the street. He was just setting the pace. Husband here. Just asked my wife so I can karma share with you. I already knew I loved you. But when you got up at 3 AM to ride your bike for 40 kilometers to comfort me when I had a panic attack during a sleepover. That was the moment I didn't want to let go. That was 10 years ago BTW. I knew I wanted to be with him the night we met, and the movie we saw shook me up emotionally and he was comforting me. But I knew I wanted to be with him forever when I saw him play with his children. They were coming over for their weekend with dad. And he said, I swear I'm not ignoring you. But I missed them. I said go for it. They're your babies. Getting down on the ground playing action figures with them. Understanding the 2-year-old's babbling stories. Letting the 6-year-old take the lead on the storyline. He wasn't just a father. He was a daddy. I knew he was the one to be the daddy to my children. He's only gotten sweeter and more loving as the years pass. My grandma said she married my grandpa so he'd stop deflating her tires. Edit. Or. Their first date involved my grandpa grabbing my grandma off her parents' porch, throwing her through the window of his car, jumping in and speeding off with her, refusing to take her home until she agreed to go out with him. Also, he beat up a guy who took her to a dance and then threatened every guy that she was his. And when they were married, my grandma said she was leaving. And he packed his bag and said, great. Where are we going? She was so angry she stayed and vowed to make his life a living hell. They argue at least 3 times a night. So I guess she's doing that. Holy your grandpa D. E. N. N. I. My moment came while I was staying over at his apartment. Up until that point, he only had one pillow on his bed and we would share it. The next day, we went to the store and he bought 2 brand new pillows so we would both be comfortable. That. And he came to bed with his mouth guard in. And I sheepishly held up mine too. Also, the time that I accidentally farted horribly loud. He lifted up his leg and let out a courtesy fart so I wouldn't feel bad. Meant to be. Edit. I can't believe my highest rated comment is about farting. And yes, my username is relevant. Unfortunately, it's a harsh, frequent reality with Crohn's disease. We had been dating for like a week. He was house sitting and taking care of 2 very expensive dogs and I accidentally let them loose in the middle of the night. I was freaking out, sure they were gone for good, but he was like, no problem, I'll go find them. 2 hours later he came back with them and wasn't even mad. He always handles emergencies like this. 30 years later he is still a very happy and chill guy. Super late to the party. But I'll share my mom's and my stepdad's. My mom at the time was a separated mother of 3, and me and my brother are twins, compounding the idiocy of male toddlers, and she had a rough time finding a guy who wanted to stick around and be a good dad. She finally worked up the question of, do you want to be in our stupid, crazy, chaotic family? My dad's response was, well, someone has to teach your boys how to spit. They've been together for 21ish years now. Married since 1999. My stepdad had to pay for the whole divorce. He really wanted to marry my mom. Little did she know, the dumb sense of humor would only get worse. And me and my brother are like little parrots of my dad. She deals with it all the time. I had bronchitis and a UT. I was constantly coughing and peeing whenever I coughed. I asked him to bring home some pee pads, but not adult diapers. I then texted not maxi pads either. Unfortunately, on that last text, he was walking through the door with a thing of puppy pads. As I'm cracking up trying not to pee myself because he said they were out of human ones. He worked as an EMT, so these were common in his work, but I got you large breed, I started realizing. Then he stayed as I sat on a puppy pad the couch without pants so I didn't run to the bathroom constantly. And he helped me shower when I was admitted to the hospital a few days later. And then that day where my period started when I was at work and I needed him to bring me something and he didn't want to screw up, so he brought me one of everything in the cabinet. Damn it, I love him. He took me to an outdoor concert when we hadn't been dating long. It was a hot day and I was dehydrated, so I passed out. He picked me up and carried me through the crowd to the first aid tent. I woke up while he was carrying me and realized that I had fallen in love with a superhero who would always be there to protect me. 5 years later he's emigrated to another country for me and we're happily married. When she falls asleep before me and I am having trouble falling asleep, I hold her hand. I feel better almost immediately. We've been with each other 17 years. Tuesday was our anniversary. I'm kinda quirky. I built a Chuck E. Cheese style ball pit in my apartment in college. It was in a closet under the stairs. Thing was, I was poor and those balls were expensive. So it was a very small ball pit. During finals week he insisted he drive me to one of my finals. I kept saying I'd be fine. But he said it was too cold and it would be nice to be picked up in an already warmed up car. He said it would be late and he didn't want me waking in the dark, etc. Finally I agreed. I took my final and walked out and got into his car. He gave me this look, then looked to the back seat, then back to me. I looked at the back seat of his car to find that he had filled it with 800 ball pit balls. They were my Christmas gift. We've been married for 2 years now. PL. The day I actually met him, his car was broke down and he rode his bike about 20 miles to my house to meet with my friend. His girlfriend at the time. She dumped him the next day and I snatched him up. Been together for almost 25 years and he's got a brand new car. I've been married for 3 years. I don't think it was one big thing, but it was a bunch of smaller things. The way he looks at me. The way he treats me. He doesn't mind singing in the car. He does silly stuff to make me laugh. We'd been happily dating for 5 years. He fell off a fence showing off at a party and shattered his tibia. After an incredibly stressful 24 hours in the emergency room. And 2 days waiting for the swelling to go down. He was finally operated on. I went shopping to keep myself occupied during the surgery. And I was browsing handbags awesome when I stopped walking, breathing, and thinking. I just said to myself, I have to be with this man forever. Asterisk. I rushed back to the hospital to wait in his room. And he called me from recovery crying because he didn't know where I was. While he was off his tits on morphine. I told him how I felt. He says he doesn't remember. But I think he does. 9 months later he got down on that knee and proposed. And we married a year from that day. We both referenced the accident in our vows. He's not allowed to climb any more fences. We've been married for 6 months now. And I'm so happy we did. We were best friends. I would like him and then he would like me. But never at the same time. Then timing was just right and we like each other at the same time. It was a big deal for me because I knew that if I kissed him, we would either have to be together forever or never see each other again. We kissed and we have been together for 18 years. We have known each other since 4th grade. He's still my best friend. We played Legos on our first date. In our 20s. It was awesome. I remember this moment like it was yesterday. We had been dating for less than 2 months. And we were at a small wine bar for his birthday. We were sitting outside drinking wine and eating the most amazing grilled cheese sandwiches in existence. Our eyes locked at one point. And the look in his eyes was complete admiration and love. He tilted his head a bit and did a sort of half smile. I felt so at ease. So comfortable. I knew at that moment. I've been married for a little over 3 years. Been together for almost 7 years. I don't have a story. But I can talk about my grandmother. 1940s or so. She met a guy through the family. He liked her. She wasn't interested in him. He would give her a ride to work at Lockheed building bombers for the war. She had a brother who was bedridden. And blind. He said he would make a bed for him with wheels so he could sit outside. He did. She fell in love. They were together into their 90s. On our first 3 dates my husband took me to eat Japanese, Thai, and Indian food. He was not a fan of any of them. And knew it before the dates. He never tried to talk me out of it. As I'm writing this he says, "Why did you hate me? You were really trying to tell me you weren't interested. Weren't you? Dot. He is the one." I can answer for my wife. She is sober now for 9 years. When we started dating I told her I wouldn't drink while we were dating. Then we got engaged. And now married. I still don't drink and I don't plan on doing until I die. I've never had a drinking problem and I never needed sobriety, but I made a promise and I intend to keep it. When we had been dating for 2 months and I found out I was 2 and 1/2 months pregnant from a one night stand. He told me not to worry, we would figure it out. Was married 5 months later and had 5 great years and 1 more kid before he passed away. He had a cork on a string tied up in a doorway as a toy for his cat. It was a very cute cat that would wait outside the house for him to return from work and would follow him down the road to the shops. That cat really loved him and they are good judges of character. I figured someone who treated his cat right would treat me right. 20 years on, and on cat number 3, and I have been proved right every day. Plus he snogged like a king on our first date. We had been dating about 4 months. Moving around on his bed, foreplay and stuff. He whips out his member and smacks it against my leg. It makes this ridiculously loud slapping sound. We both laughed hysterically for a while. Then somehow still managed to have sex afterward. After we were done. It seemed like the bed felt funny. So he had a peek under the bed. We commenced to once again laugh hysterically, realizing that we actually broke the bed frame having sex. I can't tell you why. But there was just something magical about that night. Feeling how perfectly our weirdness meshed and how neither one of us had to be embarrassed about it. I remember laying on his chest part of the night. Listening to him tell random stories and give me riddles. Knowing I'm really bad at them. The entire time I was just thinking how right it felt to be with him. And how I wouldn't mind being with him for the rest of my life. We've been engaged for a year with a wedding coming soon. All these comments make me believe in love. They make me see that just because 50% of marriages end in divorce, 50% of marriages don't end. Congrats to all the happy couples. I can't wait to be like you someday. Absolutely nothing. He's himself with me. I am myself with him. We are in heaven together because we work well together. I look at him and my woes melt away. He gives me peace. The way he treats my father. Mind you, my father is very intimidating. He had a rough childhood that led to serving in the Marine Corps for 30 years. The men that I have dated previously never held a conversation with my father as they were too scared to. Then my husband comes along. My husband takes every chance he can take to converse with my father. Whether it's talking about life in general, forcing playing footsies with him, hugging him, teasing him with a nickname. You name it. I've never seen my father laugh or smile that much since I was little. That's when I knew my husband was the one. Also, he keeps my mother on her toes with smartest remarks all the time. It's a back and forth battle between them. After a year of terrible blind date attempts by well-meaning and misguided friends, I was sitting in front of my future wife after just knowing her a few hours. Now why can't I find a girl like this? I asked myself while I fell in love with her puffy curly hair. Smart. Funny. Not full of herself. Oh. I just did. We were married a year and some change later. Had a kid. And were married 25 years before she passed away. Not a day goes by where I don't miss her curly hair. I'm still finding it everywhere. And she's been gone for over 2 years now. Walked into our college dining hall soaking wet with a broken umbrella. This was before we started dating. I thought he was cute. Nice. And everyone seemed to genuinely like him. All three still apply. So, one day I'm sitting with some of our friends in the dining hall and it's pouring outside. Like biblical flood rain. Husband walks in. Completely soaked through with an inside-out umbrella in his hand. Clearly, he'd been walking home. His umbrella crapped out on him. And he got drenched. Anyone would have walked up to their friends in that situation head off or annoyed or even joking about their terrible luck. But husband just found a chair, dropped off the umbrella, and got some dinner. Like no biggie. Not worth complaining about. I figured a guy who was both prepared for bad weather and also totally chill when those preparations crapped out on him probably had a pretty good attitude for life. That was 10 years ago next week. And we've been married for 5. He still prepares for everything. Still takes things in stride when it all goes sideways. He has, though, invested in a better umbrella. I'd come out of a bad relationship where I felt like I was always chasing the guy to get any amount of attention. My hubby didn't make me chase him, he was just always there when I needed him. He made me feel cherished. And he gave me what I needed to feel secure in our relationship. He was the first guy I felt I could trust. I also tend to be too serious and he makes me laugh. I couldn't help but fall for him. 28 years and counting. I woke up with severe stomach pain and told him I needed to go to the emergency room. He took me and spent the next 7 hours with me for us to eventually learn I had acid reflux and was sent home with Zantac. Suddenly perfectly fine.